Okay, let's just dive right in. You've heard all the buzz about DynamoDB, but how do you actually get there from a traditional relational database? Look, I get it. It can feel like a massive undertaking, but with the right strategy, it's totally manageable. So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. The strategies, the tools, and the one, and I mean the one, most important question you have to answer to make your migration a success. But first things first, why even think about a move this big? Before we get into the how, let's spend a minute on the why. We're going to explore the really powerful reasons that are pushing so many developers and businesses to take a serious look at NoSQL databases like DynamoDB. Hey, does this sound familiar? Your app is taking off, traffic is spiking, and suddenly your good old database feels less like a solid foundation and more like a bottleneck. You're constantly fighting performance problems, and trying to scale is becoming this complex, expensive headache. If you're nodding along right now, you are in exactly the right place. See, DynamoDB was built from the ground up to solve those exact problems. We're talking seamless scalability that can handle massive workloads, and really consistent single-digit millisecond performance even when you're at scale. Plus, and this is a big one, it's fully managed. That means AWS is handling all the patching, the backups, the scaling for you. You throw in a cost-efficient, serverless model and incredible durability, and it's pretty easy to see why it's such a compelling option. All right, now this is probably the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. Migrating to DynamoDB is not just about copying data from point A to point B. It requires a fundamental shift in how you think about your data. This isn't just changing your address. It's like tearing down the walls and doing a complete architectural redesign of your house. So here's the crucial difference, right? With a relational database, you design for flexibility. You normalize everything into all these different tables so you can ask pretty much any question you want later on. But with DynamoDB, you design for speed and cost. You literally start by figuring out the exact questions your app is going to ask. Those are your access patterns. And then you build a schema specifically to answer those questions as fast and as cheap as possible. And this quote right here, it just nails it. This is everything. You're not building some generic one-size-fits-all data model. You are building a purpose-built model that is tailored perfectly to what your application needs to do. And that mindset shift, that is what unlocks the incredible power and performance of DynamoDB. Okay, so you've embraced the new way of thinking. Now for the good news. You do not have to build all this from scratch. There's a really robust ecosystem of tools out there, plus a few core operations that are going to be the foundation of your whole migration project. AWS gives you a whole suite of powerful tools. The database migration service, you'll hear it called DMS, that's a real workhorse for this kind of process. For more complicated ETL, extract, transform, and load jobs, you've got tools like AWS Glue and EMR. But hey, don't ever underestimate the power of writing your own custom code, especially if you need really specific transformations. And how do you actually get data into DynamoDB? Well, there are three main ways. Put item is your standard go-to call for a single record. Batch write item lets you bundle up to 25 writes into one single efficient API call. And for the really big jobs, the import from S3 feature is your best friend for loading massive datasets directly into a brand new table. Okay, we've got the mindset, we've got the tools, now let's talk strategy. We've reached the heart of this whole thing. There are really three main migration strategies, and your choice is going to come down to a single critical business decision. Everything we're about to talk about, all the planning, all the technical complexity, it all boils down to how you answer this one simple question. This is the one factor that's going to guide your entire choice. And there it is. Seriously, how much downtime can your application really handle? An hour? A few minutes? None at all? Your answer to this question is going to point you directly to one of the three main migration paths. It makes a super complex choice surprisingly simple. I love this slide because it just lays it all out so clearly. If you can handle a full maintenance window, an offline migration is going to be your simplest route. If you need at least some uptime, maybe keeping the lights on for reads, you're looking at a hybrid approach. And for those mission-critical apps that just can't go down ever, an online migration is the only way to fly. So let's look at that first path. An offline migration is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. You take the application down, you move all the data in one big chunk, and then you bring the new application online. It is by far the most straightforward strategy, basically trading a bit of downtime for a lot of simplicity. And the process itself is pretty clean. You just run a job to pull the data from your old database, transform it into the right format for DynamoDB, and dump it into an S3 bucket. From there, you just hit a button to trigger the DynamoDB import feature, and AWS handles the whole bulk load. Simple and really effective. But what if you can't afford a full outage? Well, the hybrid approach is your middle ground. This is where you might do something like put your application into a read-only mode. Or, and this is a really cool technique, you can use something called dual writes to keep the service partially active. So here's how that works. First, you deploy a new version of your app that writes all new data to both the old SQL database and the new DynamoDB table at the same time. While that's happening live, you kick off a background job to migrate all the old historical data. Then, once that backfill is totally done, you just cut over and point everything to DynamoDB. Pretty clever, right? And finally, we have the online migration. This is the top tier. This is the path for those applications where any downtime is just not an option. Think e-commerce checkouts, critical financial systems. It's definitely the most complex strategy of the three, but it delivers a completely seamless experience for your users. This whole approach hinges on a super powerful feature called Change Data Capture, or CDC. The idea is you use a tool like AWS DMS to do a full load of all your existing data. But then, and this is the magic part, DMS just keeps watching your source database for any new changes, and it replicates them over to DynamoDB in near real time. Once the two are perfectly in sync, you can just flip the switch with virtually zero downtime. So, as we start to bring this all together, it becomes pretty obvious that your migration strategy is really a balancing act. It's this constant trade-off between what the business needs, minimizing user impact, and the technical complexity and engineering effort it's going to take to pull it off. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? As your tolerance for downtime goes down, the complexity of your migration plan goes way up. An offline migration is low complexity, but you need that downtime window. An online migration gives you that near zero downtime, but it comes at the cost of much higher technical complexity. But let's not forget the goal here. Why go through all this trouble? Because this is the kind of availability, the service level agreement that DynamoDB gives you. That promise of 5 nines is often the exact reason that justifies all the engineering effort of a really well-planned online migration. So if there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. The perfect migration strategy isn't really a technical decision. It's a business one. You have to literally weigh the cost of downtime for your company against the engineering cost of building a more complex zero downtime solution. We've walked through the mindset, the tools, and the 3 core strategies. You now have the framework to make the right call. So the only question left is the one only you can answer. What's the right downtime window for your business?